Okay, good evening class. So today let's extend more on what we discussed earlier regarding fractional factorial design. So kanina we delved into experiments wherein meron tayong isang assigned L value, no? So our L was just when L was equal to 1 or L equals 0. So let's look at more at a fractional factorial design wherein mas marami yung blocks na pwede nating ma-produce. So specifically for this example, let's look at how we can divide our full factorial design into four blocks. So in that case, we will actually have two assigned values, L1 and L2, instead of just one L value. So the problem states here that we have to consider a situation in which we have five factors, each at two levels, which is a characteristic of a factorial design. And however, due to time constraints, the experimenters must decrease the runs to 8 treatment combinations. So again, if you look at it, it's two levels. 2 raised to 5 factors is equal to 32 treatment combinations. And then our experimenters want to decrease it to 8 treatment combinations, so that's 32 divided by 8, which should give us 4. So 4 is the number of groups we want to reduce our experimenting to. So if we could write that down, it would look something like this is 2 to the 5 minus 2. So again, 2 here represents the number of levels. 5 is our full factorial design, and we are dividing it by 4 groups. So that's 2 to the 2. So that's why it's 5 minus 2. So by dividing it into 4 groups, we reduce the 32 treatment combinations into 8 treatment combination runs. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is develop the standard order for 5 excuse me, for 5 factors. So the standard order again, we could start with A. No, let's start with 1. So again, I'll just leave this blank. So I'll have A, B, then our next is AB. So I'll just leave this blank for now so I can use the concatenate function. So if I, again, when we are adding factors, we just take the existing treatment combination, then multiply it by the new factor we are adding. So say for example, I want to add C, so that's I use the concatenate function to make my life easier. Alright, so concatenate again is when we combine two strings of text. So that's if I have A and I want to combine it with a C, then it's AC, B, BC, AB, and C is ABC. So I'll start with the top level one, then I'll combine it with a C string. So take note that when we are using text strings, we usually, or Excel requires us to enclose it in quotation marks. So I have that one, so that's C. I drag it down until I get ABC. So this is the standard order for 3 factors. Then since I want to add a D function, I use again my concatenate function. Starting from the first row and add the D string. Okay. And this time, this is 8 rows. So I want to add 8 more rows. So I'll end up with A to ABCD. Now, since we are trying to do 2 to the 5 minus 2, then I'll add one more factor, which is E. Then I'll do it once more, concatenate first row, then add the E string, then drag it down until I get a total of 32 treatment combinations. So this is 32 treatment combinations. As you can see here, um, these are 32 rows. Okay, so most of these textings here are still um, in their uh, formula function. So I want to be able to copy and paste them without problem. So what I usually do is I copy this string of text, right click, then this is actually just paste special values. Okay, so when I do that, I actually copied the exact values and not the formula themselves. So if you can see, when I look here, it's ABD, as opposed to earlier it was uh, concatenate AB or concatenate then a certain number of arguments. So if I press Control Z, you can see clearly that ABD here is concatenate A5D. Then when I redo it, the paste special function just what I did a while ago, and you can see it's ABD and not a function, an Excel function. Okay. So once I do that, I can now fill in my first row. So I can do the apostrophe, then close parenthesis, open parenthesis, 1, close parenthesis. So this should give me a text value. So I have 1, A, B, A, B, and so on. So this is my standard order. And again, complete my columns A, B, C, D, D. Now, again, we just alternate between, the first column is alternating every every row with zeros and ones. Then I just drag it down until A, B, C, D, E. Then because what it does is it actually automatically fills in the series. So I don't want to fill it in the series. I just want to fill it, uh, or I want to copy the cells 0 and 1. So I press this button here, then press copy cells. So I should get a series of zeros and ones. Then the next one is, if this is every row, then this is every 2 rows. So I have that. Then I do the same thing. Copy this 4, drag it down, and again I'll use copy cells. And the third one is every 4 rows. Oops, that's every 4 rows. Again, drag it down, copy cells, and I should get nice looking functions, nice looking array like here. That's 0, 0, 0, 1. I'll drag this one up to here, and I'll drag this one hanggang sa baba. Again, copy cells. This one is split right in the middle, so it's 0 up to A, B, C, D. Then starting at E, it's 1. Okay. Now, excuse me. So the next thing we do is we get the defining contrasts, or the DCs. So if you observe, if we try to look at this in our tables, wait, I'll show it in view. If you can observe, sorry, let's do that again. There we go. So if you can see it here, 2 to the 5 minus 2 gives us a total number of rounds of 8, which is exactly what we were trying to do, reducing 32 treatment combinations into 8 treatment combinations. And the defining contrast, we have 2 defining contrasts. So we have ABD and ACE. So we'll use both of these to produce our L1 and L2. So I'll just copy that ABD and ABD. Okay, sorry naputol. Free software lang kasi gamit ko. 10 minutes lang yung maximum limit niya. So anyway, again, as I mentioned earlier in the previous video, meron tayong, kung makikita nyo, yung defining contrast natin is ABD and ACE. And again, we'll try to use, or we'll use both of these to produce our L1 and our L2 values. Okay, so I'll just copy it here. Meron tayong, this is our ABD, which should correspond to our L1. This is our, wait, sorry, this is ABD, then this is ACE. Okay, so meron tayong ABD and ACE. Then what we'll do is, let's write down our L1 and our L2 columns. So similar to what we did um, in the first example we showed in class, wherein meron tayong isang L value lang. So actually yung pinakita ko in class, yung ginawa natin was the 2 to the 4 minus 1. We were reducing 16 treatment combinations into 8 treatment combinations. And our defining contrast was A, B, C, and D. Kaya nung dati, ang nagmukha siyang parang sum lang ng lahat ng yung sa rows ng A, B, C, and D. So this time, since ang defining contrast natin is A, B, D, and ACE, what we actually do is, for the A, B, D column, we add only the A, so that's B2 plus the B column, which is this one, plus the D column. So that's A, B, D, there. And we can drag this down until dun sa natin. So this is the sum of the defining contrasts A, B, and D. Okay? Tapos, if we proceed to our ACE, so that's sum. So we look at our A, then our C, and we have E. So you can use sum or you can use just the plus function. Then we drag it down again until the last row, A, B, C, D. So we have that. Then, yung ginawa natin last time is, di ba, if the sum is even, then we give it a value of 0, and if the sum is odd, we give it a value of 1. So we can use again the mod function, which the mod function gives us the remainder when we divide a certain number. So the first argument is a certain number divided by a certain divisor. Okay, so we take advantage of the fact that when it's an even value, when we divide that by 2, the remainder should always be 0 because it's even. And if it's odd, when we divide it by 2, the remainder should always be equal to 1. So we can use, since L1 is our ABD, and again, this is just arbitrary, we could use L1 for ACE, then L2 for ABD. Pero yung gagamitin ko ngayon is ABD corresponds to L1 while ACE corresponds to L2. So, it's mod doon sa column ng ABD, G2, then divided by 2 so that we can know if it's an even or odd number. Then we drag this down and we use the same function, so I could just drag it pa ganyan. So if I look at it, this is mod of H2, which is AC, the AC column, then divided by 2 again, and we want to know the remainder. So if I drag it down again, I should have an array of zeros and ones. Okay, so now this is my L1 and L2 values. So now what I want to do is create 4 groups or 4 blocks. So my 4 blocks are these values. So let me just take the PowerPoint file, show it here. There we go. So if we have 4 blocks, then our assignment values should be or block 1 is when both L1 and L2 is equal to 0. Block 2 is L1 is equal to 0 where L2 is equal to 1. Block 3 is L1 is equal to 1, L2 is equal to 0. Block 4 is when L1 and L2 are both equal to 1. Okay, so this is just a permutation of how, or a combination of how we can arrange um, our L1 and L2. Okay, so actually, if you look at it, these are all arbitrary, no? Because we can actually say that this will be my block 1 is when both are 1, and this is my block 4. So this is all arbitrary. You can arrange it in any way as long as you get all these 4 combinations right here. Okay, so let's first get our block 1. So let's follow the arbitrary convention set by that PowerPoint. So block 1 is when L1 and L2 are both equal to 0. So I'll say 1 equals 0, L2 equals 0. This is my block 1. So again, to sort this easily, I just highlight the first row, and so I won't rearrange other columns here. I just select it up to this uh, column. So hanggang dito lang sa L2. Then I go at the top ribbon, you can see this. Go to data, and at data, press the filter button. So now I can arrange L1 and L2. So what I'll do is I'll take all the L1s that are equal to 0. So I uncheck the 1. Then I go to L2. Wait, let's do that again. Because uh, maybe it's better if I put this in a new sheet. Say that's block 1. So I have L1 is equal to 0 and L2 is also equal to 0. Now this is now my block 1. Right? So I can actually take this one. Oh no. This is block 1. Right? Now if I have another block here, so let's say this block 2, where block 2 is now when L1 is equal to 0 and L2 is equal to 1. So I'll go back to my sheet, rearrange my filters. So I'll say when L1 is 0 and when L2 is 1. So I'll uncheck the 0, recheck the 1. So I'll get this one, I'll copy it again, paste it here, block 2, like that, and I'll get my block 3. Block 3 is when L1 is 1 and L2 is 0. Block 3, so let's rearrange that. This is uncheck the 0, recheck the 1, that's for L1. L2 is 0, so check the 0, uncheck the 1. Okay, copy this again. This is my block 3. Now if I get block 4, block 4 is when both L1 and L2 is equal to 1. So we have L2 equals 1. Okay. Then I have L1 is 1, L2 is also 1. This is my block. Hmm? So these are all my blocks now, my available blocks. So I divided the 30 Okay, so as I was saying, your 32 treatment combinations have now been reduced to 8 treatment combinations per block. So we have 4 blocks here, and you are free to choose any of these 4 blocks. Now, in the final factorial design that you will be choosing will now depend on your knowledge of the subject. So let's say, for example, feel mo na you want to look at the main effects of B and D kunwari. So the logical choice would be this block right here since it contains the main effects B and D. So and let's say for example na ito nga yung pinili nyo tapos you did an experiment and you got results right listed here. So this is for example your response variable y, and this is the values that you got from that experiment. Now, if I want to do ANOVA and I'm doing ANOVA purely on the main effects only, since limited lang din yung number of observations natin, hindi rin natin pwedeng ma-analyze yung higher order na interactions, no? Mga two-way interactions, three-way, etc. So let's just do the main effects. So we have 5 factors. So that's A, B, C, D, and E. And again, if we have a factorial design, the way we do it is we do a table of signs, and from the table of signs, we multiply it by our, we get the sum product of our response variable column versus the table, the row of the factor we are trying to get the SS and the contrast on. Okay, so for example, this one again, when we're doing table of signs, anytime the factor appears in the treatment combination, we give it a value of 1, and if it does not appear, then it gets a value of -1. So, for example, this one, this treatment combination B, there is no A, so that's -1, then B is 1, C is also -1, D is -1, and E is -1 as well. So we could do that for all of the treatment combination, but the faster way could be you could fill in the positive ones first. So for example, we have AC here is A, and this is C, then D is this one, A, B, C, D, this is A, B, C, and D, no E here. We have A and E, then we have B, C, and E. Tapos meron tayong A, B, D, and E. And last we have C, D, and E. Now to complete the negative ones, we just select our table, then press Ctrl plus F. Then this dialog box should appear. Then you look at the Replace tab. Then for the Find What entry field, you place the blank. So all of these blanks, we are trying to replace it with -1. So for the replace with entry field, we place -1. Okay, and once we set that up, we just click on replace all, and all those blanks should have been replaced with -1s. Okay, so after replacing that, we we write contrast. contrast. Again, the contrast is just equal to the sum product of this array multiplied by this array. Now, we want to be able to just drag this function across this row, no? So what we do is we don't want the response variable to move, so we place a $sign on the on all of or all of the letters and numbers. That's $B, $2, $B, $9. Then C2 and C9, since we're dragging, we want this red column here to move as we drag the formula across this row. So we just leave it as is. We have that one. Then let's drag it to the right. And we could compute the effects also. So that's just the 2 times the contrast divided by the total number of observations, but since we're just doing ANOVA here, let's just proceed directly to the sum of squares. So the sum of squares, the formula for sum of squares is just the contrast squared divided by total number of observations. And if you can see all our data points, we only have 8 data points, so our total number is just 8. And we just drag this to the right, as so, like so. Mhm. Now we have the SS values for our different main effects. Now we just do our ANOVA table. So we have ANOVA, then this is where we place our different factors. We are only doing main effects A, B, C, D, and E. Then we have after the factors, we have error, then we have total. Then the first column is just the SS. Next column is degrees of freedom. Next is MS. Then we have F cap. We have P value. We have F quit. Then maybe we can add a decision column. So, dapat by now class, no, you should be able to memorize or at least familiarize yourself by heart kung anong laman ng ANOVA table, because this is used in most of our calculations. No? In fact, all of the ANOVA calculations uses this table format. So you should, if you want to pass MetE14. No? Pero kung ayaw, okay lang din, memorize. But anyway, yung sa ANOVA natin, you could just copy paste no, or say ayaw ni Julina yung VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. Ang gagawin lang natin ay we could just place the equal sign. No? So pwedeng equals, ganyan, equals, then equals dito. Or another method is yung transpose method, no? Yung phase special, which I taught earlier kanina during our lecture. So we can control C, then right click, paste special, values, because we don't want to copy the formula, we want to copy the values themselves, then transpose. Okay, and it should fill up like so. Then the total, again, you should be able to memorize this one. So total is equal to the sum of square ng lahat ng data natin minus, if you remember the parang quote-unquote recurring term natin, which is just the grand total of your data squared divided by total number of observations. Okay, so this is the sum of squares. Then our error is just equal to this one minus all the SS, computed sum of squares. So again, dapat yung total nito should be equal to the SS total. Okay, so kaya yung error is equal to this one minus these values. Okay? So degrees of freedom is just the number of levels minus 1. So for A, the number of levels is, or since this is 2 to the K factorial design, so it's 2 levels for all factors. So that's 2 minus 1 is 1. So we just copy that there. Then the total is just the total number of observations minus 1, and total number of observations or data points is 8 minus 1. That gives us 7. 7 minus this is 5. So 7 minus 5 is 2. Now we compute for MS. MS is always, again, you should be able to memorize this now. SS over DF. Then I can drag this down. Okay, so naputol na naman. So anyway, so I dragged it down. So MS again is just SS over DF. So drag it down. Tapos, your F-calc is always MS of the particular factor divided by MS error. So MS error should not be, this is fixed, no? So we place again a dollar sign so that it won't move. Because we divide it by, we do this for all of the factors. So we have F-calc. Now for p-value, it's F in, sorry, F in, and again, just to be safe, I place RT, and the probability is this one. Oh no, I'm sorry. For p-value, it should be F this RT, then my F calc, then the degrees of freedom. One is the numerator, so that's this one, and the denominator is your error, so it's this one. Right? And the error should have been moving, so I could do a dollar sign, or to be quick, I'll just do 2 para hindi na siya magbago. Okay? So, I drag this down. I should get the p-values now. And notice we have very large p-values here now. So, right off the bat, you can already see that none of the factors will be significant. Okay? Then we have, let's just check it with F-crit also, which should give us the same results now. F-crit is again F, this, F inverse RT, and the probability we're looking for is 0.5. So again, if you no, we should do 0.25 now. Let's try 0.25. So let's say we have a 95% confidence level. So we have a probability of 0.025. Degree of freedom is 1 and 2. Here only. So you can see the F rate is very much larger than the F calculated here. So all of these values are lower than F rate. So we decide that we will not, or we fail to reject H naught. Right? And that being said, we can say that none of the factors actually have a significant effect on the response variable. And looking again at the p-values, all of which have a greater area than the 0.025. Okay. Okay, so yan lang siguro muna for this lesson. I hope you learned something, and if medyo nalilito kayo, you can always ask me for consultations. Email nyo na ako para ma-schedule natin yung consultation session. And I think tuloy pa rin yung exam natin on October 30, but in any case, kung may changes, I'll let you know ASAP na. So, yun lang siguro muna. If you like the lesson, siguro drop a like, share, subscribe. Ganun siguro. Joke lang.